Hey, what's up, Generations fans? We've got the recap for the last two sessions here we had inside Generations for Cass. The last one was 3:30, March 30th, 2024, and then before that, we had a week before that. The first session was us. I had messed around with the Sunrise Spear. I had after I'd healed a good bit of people there, and we kind of got an operation up and going to like a kind of like a triage state. And I tried to recharge myself with the spear. That didn't go well, and I basically internally blew myself up a little bit. So that was less than ideal. Well, it didn't quite do what I was hoping to do. It's still not the main reason I got the spear, but I was kind of hoping for that. Maybe a little something. But it is what it is. So I was recovering from that, and we had moved ourselves to a nearby hospital. They had organized the hospital in. It was like Lyria basically heading up a lot of the organization with some of the people that we had healed, aiding us and kind of coming together to form like a little like chain of command that everyone seemed like they were pretty willing to come into despite the crisis. We moved to the medical facility. What we ended up doing is Miriam is healing like staff, like nurses and stuff like that. Lyria is doing more oversight stuff, and I'm healing the higher end like doctors and surgeons. But we're already pretty tired going into this, so it says I heal four doctors starting, and I start healing a female surgeon. I finish healing her. The two doctors are Dr. Camden and Dr. Arminus. Neither of them are very much help. They seem like they are very defeated when it comes to this whole thing. Like they weren't able to solve the problem of the virus when it was 12 children. Now that it's spread to everybody, it's like they're I'm giving them ideas, and they're basically telling me why they won't work. As frustrating it is, it's not necessarily a bad thing because it does temper expectations. It's not a good idea to jump forward into an idea that logistically wouldn't be possible. So, despite their negativity, they're not like useless. It's just, I think I made the joke like, oh yeah, I wish I'd have, literally revived anyone else. But the reality of the situation is they are providing helpful information because they're more intimately knowledgeable about the surroundings and the operations in the Darklands than I am. The third person that I bring up is Dr. Alina, and I get a vitamin shot in the process. I think from Doctor Camden. It was either one of the two, Camden or Arminus, got it, and one of them kind of protested, like maybe we should let him recover naturally. The other one's like, what could it hurt? And I was like, yeah, you're right. It's like give me a little energy boost, but I get on the way to healing Dr. Arlena. And after that, like while she's kind of recovering, I had this conversation with Camden and Arminus about like new possibilities. As Alina gets up, I see the black spots around her eyes appear for a moment and then disappear, which suggests, as we had expected, that people who recover from this virus are left stronger. They're left more attuned, they're left more capable than they would be otherwise. This might be enough to push certain people over the edge to being more like me and Aramis, like special people within New Itari who have gifts rather than more passive effects. Dr. Alina seems to be one of those. And this is what's going to shorten the recap a lot. I basically bring her up to speed as to what's going on, and I walk her through a lot of the process. And I specifically, the reason I'm doing it with her a little bit more in depth is because I think she has the actual potential to help. I can sense her connection to like this new Ikwari energy, that it's there. And I'm doing things to help bring her on board with it. Not just because she's another mind that can help me approach the problem, but it seems like Nui energy is strong and working in the individual, where Quarry energy is good. It seems like it's better at dealing with greater numbers of individuals. So it's on the one bright side, the thing that makes like the actual like so you can be attuned like to the Nui energy, and you'll heal faster, you'll tend to live longer, you'll just receive like passive benefits to it. But on the active side, to truly utilize it, you do need to be a master of biology, specifically the biology you're working on, from like the way the systems work. And this is where like alien biology comes into play with like all of you guys. Like, you know, everyone's, you know, every species body is going to be a little different. Understanding the way the different systems work and everything like that, it's like that's going to be the challenge for Cass. But with this specific scenario, it's advantageous because Dr. Alina is a surgeon, a presumably very skilled surgeon. So she understands the mechanical aspects of, we'll call them healing arts, like the way different systems interact, the way trauma affects the body, all that kind of stuff. All things necessary to make you adept at kind of the Nui Quarry interactions. Like you like if you don't understand like what the circulatory system does and like the points of failure and what, you know, what you can do to improve it or anything like that, like you're basically going to get the passive effects. But there's basically a knowledge check and a skill check. She already has the knowledge check. She just needs to translate it and apply it to a new skill that she has. And that's specifically an attunement to Quarry energy. I come to find out, and this is something that it's like one of those ones like finding out you're special, but also it makes things much worse. Slight tangent is I realized the Nui proper might be in a lot more danger than I thought. Because originally I was like, oh, Darklands are going to basically be like 80-90% fatality, and Nui proper might be a little less. Like it might be 65%, you know, instead of like the 70-73%. Because I'm like, oh, we have more capable individuals over there. It's not quite as simple as that, because even though there's people more capable in Cass, everyone has specific special gifts. Like Aramis' thing is writing a virus and making it transmissible. Cass's specific thing is multifunctional, multi-level operations simultaneously. The DM described it as if someone was in a bar fight and got bruised and busted up and everything like that, and then like had their lung punctured, you could do that with one doctor. The doctor would see to the potentially fatal damage, like in the punctured lung, and then heal up the bruises and like the less fatal stuff as an after effect. But if they were having a punctured lung and having a heart attack simultaneously, they would call in two doctors to perform two separate procedures simultaneously. That isn't the case with Cass. Cass's special gift, we'll call it, is that he could perform both of those operations simultaneously. And that's like an order of magnitude rarer than just the standard like Nui surgeon kind of thing. So that kind of set me back a little bit as far as the feasibility of approaching like teaching like someone else who's gifted in Nui energy, getting them to cure this disease. It's definitely worse. The chances of it happening are worse because they're going to be probably affected themselves, and then fighting it off is going to be difficult, and then healing others is going to be orders of magnitude more difficult. I think my step of taking Miriam and Lyria through it, like they may have similar gifts to me in that way, like because as we come to find out, Alina has a similar gift to Aramis in that when I showed her the sketchings of Aramis, that he walked me through his process, it was foreign to me. It was difficult to comprehend, but it did make sense from a verbal perspective. But for Alina, something clicked in her, and I think it was that passive attunement that she has to it, where she, like I said, like I understand certain things where, you know, like almost like inherent level, like the threads that like bind people together, and like kind of the manipulation of those threads to like form the tapestry, and then like the threads that are detrimental or work against it, like to either remove those or maybe just untangle them so that they work in a way that's more natural. Like her gift seems like it's similar to Aramis, and yeah, it's like kind of it's a rare shot, but it's like it's cool that it worked out. So it's like it gives us something to work on. I walk her through 3 processes. The first one was just the idea of Nui energy, what it does, how it works, and the fact that it's not visible by any modern spectrum that we have. But basically, we take your body's natural healing ability and we make it much more efficient, but we also can put a bit of ourselves into it as well, to repair damaged tissue and organs. If something requires surgery, we can basically perform almost like energy surgery through our mind's eye. So without needing like the instruments or anything like that, but we still kind of manipulate things as such to repair them. So that was like the making an incision in her arm, and then slowly showing her the process of healing up, explaining that like touch isn't necessary, but for novices it tends to help. And Cass's theory to her was that as far as training this ability goes, the larger gate to it is translating something completely ephemeral to your mind's eye, like a perception of something that isn't there, but your mind's still visualizing it, because that visual aid helps you act out the thing you're looking to do. So if you have that like level of imagination, or like mastery of 3D space, you know, things like that, like you'll be much better off at dealing with this, or at least like utilizing this talent. So I did that with her, and she said she could feel it, she could sense it in a way, but like yeah, it's like there doesn't seem to be like a visual stimulus associated with it, and it was very fascinating to her. The next thing I did is I took her through the process of actually healing a patient. And the problem I have right now is I'm at the end of my stamina. So this is pretty much like the last patient I'll be able to heal before I can rest, or before I need to rest. So I go through that with her, and I explain to her it's similar to a game that we have on our planet called Otash, and it's like 3-dimensional chess in a way, but it's got its differences. But I kind of explain like it's more of a cross between like Risk and chess, I guess you would say. It's like where, you know, there's different systems in the body. The virus has a set programming. It's like if this, then that kind of thing. But it does have like some allowances of, I don't want to say like complete free will, but like some complexities built into its routine, as far as the way it will attack various systems in the body. And as far as like the spectrum of energy goes, on the positive, the negative end, I think I don't know if I've shown you guys that before. I have a little spreadsheet the DM gave me that was very handy, that different systems in the body, the Nui versus Quarry are better at healing or damaging. And then there's also a third column that is whenever Nui comes into contact with Quarry, who has the advantage. Like I remember like circulatory, nervous, and respiratory all have small to moderate advantages over Quarry energy. Whereas something like reproductive system has like a severe disadvantage for Nui and a severe advantage for Quarry if they come head to head. So like the virus operates under the assumptions of those strengths, so that it will. But like I said, the thing is, like when you're trying to save someone's life, having it ravage their reproductive system, like possibly leaving them sterile, is better than death. So like, you know, and presumably like some of those things can be repaired over time just based on our gifts, but it will be time consuming. But like at the end of the day, it's like the way you approach it is you assault the central nervous system and retake that, so that you basically have the command center of the body, and then you're looking at like bringing back the circulatory and respiratory system to maintain like the supply of nutrients and oxygen to the brain, so that it can fuel the body's functions as it's being attacked. There's a couple maneuvers that you can do that we've picked up along the way. They aid in either establishing a foothold or finishing the virus off. One of them is you can temporarily trick the virus into attacking itself. It's a maneuver that I believe Lyria discovered. It's good for a temporary push, and it helps us get our foothold in the door as an individual. I was like, for someone like me who's at least adept at curing people, it just makes the process easier. It's less strain on me to do it. The second step, the second maneuver is Miriam's, where once you have like the critical systems kind of under your command and you're operating out of them to try to push further and onward to other systems, you'll go for the lymphatic system and basically turn on the body's own natural defenses against the virus. And it's basically having like a second half person there working with you. The better, or I think more gifted or attuned people are to Nui, the better the bonus is for activating that system. So that's just kind of like the two maneuvers that we've come up with. And then the virus's like maneuver being, and I don't think it's as effective as it was before, was like it can enter the renal system, go to the adrenaline glands, and basically pump the host's body full of adrenaline, sending it into like a state of shock, and making it very difficult to cure or like disrupting the healing process. So like if it does make that move, it's kind of like a trump card to watch out for. And this is something I explained to her. Yeah, so I walk her through this process, and it's difficult, and I realized this about halfway through that there's a better way to do this, but now I've got to worry about like running out of energy. So I explained to her after this, I was like, what we should do is we should do the next one under your equipment, like under your monitoring equipment, because they do have better technology here when it comes to medical stuff, but we don't need that good of technology because we're just really good healers. Excuse me. So I get a quick 3-hour rest to try to get myself some energy back up. Oh, I also bring her into the circle of, because she's promised, like she might be the thing we need to potentially start turning this around. It's not like we're gonna save everybody, but through her we might be able to save a lot more people than just the three of us together. So I kind of bring her up to speed with the idea that Nui energy allows for a malleability of life force, and that we could potentially take from others to restore ourselves. The problem is like 3 or 4-fold. I forget how many it was. The first thing is everyone's in a weakened state, so taking from them is going to leave them more susceptible to the virus and more likely that they're just going to die outright. She was concerned with the idea of almost like vampirism, where like a 1-to-1 where you're just draining a single person. And I said, that's less than ideal, because taking small amounts from a group of people, while not necessarily as efficient, like let's say I want to take 10% from like a room full of people, I might end up taking, that 10%, but I only need 5%. It's not necessarily an efficient process. Some of that energy goes to waste, but it doesn't put people as high of a risk or at much of a detriment when it comes to like sucking off their life essence. Whereas doing one person, it is like that kind of vampiric act of, you have a lot higher chance of like just possibly outright killing them or taking away more of their life essence or life force than you would want to. And I have experience in dealing with it with several people to revive Miriam. And that was definitely challenging, but that was also bringing someone back to the dead. We're just looking to recharge myself here. So the first problem was everyone's already in a weakened state. The people we've also just healed was like the next thing, and it's like, well, they're also like, they basically just fought off a very severe virus that was looking to kill them, like basically like ravage the systems in their body. So they're still recovering, and they're still like, they're not on high energy themselves. So we don't have the problem is like, consider it a blood transfusion, but we don't have a viable supply. At the end of the day, and this is the thing I kind of presented to her, because it's its own moral quandary, and specifically, these aren't my people. It feels worse because they're not my people. And we are these outsiders, and we have like visited these atrocities on them in the past, even though we understand the atrocities better now, and that like they were actually a bit of a mercy, which sounds, I know, really bad. It doesn't feel right for Cass to make that call. It's more like you're a doctor here. I'm your instrument. Like, would you use your instrument this way? Like, I can say, it might cost 5 people lives, but I can save another 40 people. Like, do we start looking at things like that, or do we just naturally rest, recover, let the time pass, and deal with the cards we're given, kind of thing? And that's where, like, she's kind of wrestling with that idea. We haven't really come to any kind of hard conclusion on it yet, so it's still a little up in the air. I get my 3 hours rest. I go out and I heal a person under her instrumentation. Through that process, she introduces a virus in through the reproductive system of the patient, and it does seem like it's attacking the Aramis virus, but it fizzles out after about 5 seconds. It's not stable. It's basically dying as fast as it can replicate, and it just kind of gets behind the curve and wipes itself out. But it's also her first attempt at, like, attempting to manipulate this energy, and it seems like she's on track to be able to do something like that. We talk about it briefly, as far as what she did, and I basically explained, like, that kind of experimentation is very safe around me specifically. I was like, but doing on your own, it can pose risk, because there is like a bit of a tug of war that it can exist there, where it can sometimes it's not about force of will to push yourself forward. It's about restraint from keeping things from getting out of control. And that was kind of the idea I was trying to get across to her. And I think she was receptive of it. The next step is we need to find more people who have the potential gifts that she does. And we did, through our research, have, like, a database of those kind of people. Two problems, and I messed this up in game, but I'm going to rectify it for the next session. I'm going to make sure I put this in my notes, because I didn't have it there, is most of our notes were confiscated, and some of our notes are back at our old research facility. We've traveled a decent distance between where we are now in this medical facility and where we were housed for our research. And it's kind of chaos out there. Like I said, presuming that this kills 70% of the population, 30% of the population is still out there and in a panic. Maybe it's probably less, because presumably, like, let's say 10% of the people who are affected recover, and then just 20% just show some kind of immunity to it. Like, I think Mycom showed some kind of immunity to it. So, like, presumably there's more people out there like that, but a lot of them are in a panic. I get assigned this guy Gaius, who is like a personal assistant to me, and he's kind of like ushering me around the facility because I'm unfamiliar with it. I get a security guard named Corporal Liam, and he's going to take me back to our research facility. This is where I'm about to be put on pause. I'm going to get the notes about people who are affected so I can get them to Alina, and maybe we can get more of those people up and running, because even her in her current state, if she makes several strides over the next we'll say 12 to 18 hours, it's still unlikely she's going to be able to reach the amount of people she needs to reach. So basically getting more people like her, it's like it gives us a chance for better coverage and saving more people, but it's still not, Alina isn't like this necessarily linchpin to saving everybody. She's like where, Cass might be able to save, let's say Cass can save over these 48 hours, 500 people. Like, if Alina could do this, she might be able to save 10,000 by having a virus that can fight that virus. But it's still, we're still dealing with millions. So I'm out ready to go. And I think in my next session, I'm literally going to turn around and be like, no, this isn't the play. I need to stay here and work with Alina, because we don't even know where the notes are. Most of the notes are confiscated. And I think I left even a note saying to Lyria, like, to come get the notes with me, because in my kind of tired state last night, I'm thinking, oh, I'm just going to another wing of this hospital to get our notes. That's not true at all. Like, we traveled to get here. So I'm going to, like, not retcon, but I'm going to go back on the idea of needing Corporal Liam to go get these notes, because I'm pretty sure the notes were confiscated and taken somewhere. So what we're probably gonna have to do is send Corporal Liam on his own to fetch these notes from, or I'm gonna have him search out, what was her name? The Prime, I think. I don't remember her name offhand. Prime Magnate short bone. Yeah, okay, yeah. So she's back there. But yeah, I gotta search out the Prime and bring her up to speed with what's going on and why we need that information. And hopefully Corporal Liam can come through big. A small detail I missed in the recap is Micah was able to get the emergency alert system online. It basically is kind of like your Wii U, please stay indoors, and we'll get to you whenever we can, kind of thing. Doesn't really do much, but it is what it is. Hopefully, it can like calm some panic out there. But that was my 2 sessions. The last 2 generation sessions I had. I was about to go out there with Cass and the spear and the armor and start smiting people who try to get me in the crowd, but I don't think that's the play anymore. I think it's too much of a risk to separate myself from like this hospital and like a potential person, because I feel like if I go out there, I'm going to get into some shenanigans that are going to take me away from actually healing people. And that's where we're leaving off.